Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Haribo, 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 Netago, Haribo. Jayo Radha Gokula Nanda Radha Gokula Nanda Radhe.
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Gaura Premanande, Gaura Premanande, Gaura Premanande. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Astottara Satta Sri Sriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Astottara Satta Sri Sriman His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Ke Ananta Gauri Vaishnavinda Ke Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ke Rup Sanatan Bhattaraganath Sri Jiva Gopal Bhatt Das Raghunath Sad Goswami Ke Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ke Sri Sri Radha Krishna Sakkopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ke Vrindavan Dham Ke Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Sri Ayodhya Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda Ke Sri Sri Gaudanitai Ke Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ji Ke Sri Harinam Shankirtan Ke Nitai 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 Gaura Premanande Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to Guru and Gauranga.
Lotus mouth. Friend of the poor. Srila Prabhupada Ki.
You know which way?
Tell us after. Yeah, I'll give a good details.
Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhariya Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhariya Jasodanandana Raja Jananjaya Yasodanandana Raja Jananjaya Jamuna Thira Yamuna Thira Madhava Gunja Bihari Madhavan Gunja Bihari Hey Gunja Bihari Hey Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Hey beautiful Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Hey Hey Sodanandana Bhaja Janarandya Hey Yasodanandana Bhaja Janarandya Yamuna Thira Yamuna Thira Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Shri Radhe Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Hey Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Gaurani Thai Gaurani Thai Gaurani Thai Thai Gaurani Thai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Hey, hey, Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Nithai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol, Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ji ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari 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 Bol. Where did Sridevi go? She's hiding somewhere?
She just popped out. She's coming back.
She better come back. This is a little rasa we have. We're not sure which mellow it is, but it's one of the lower mellows. Okay. So, I was asked to speak on expert leadership. So this is all theoretical from my part. So we're focusing on, of course, the life of Lord Ramachandra. So I chose one book verse from the Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd chapter, verse number 20. Okay. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadayaha loka sangraham evapi sampasyan kartum arhasi karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadayaha loka sangraham evapi sampayan kartum arhasi. Chant. Ladies. Anyone else? karmana, by work, eva, even, he, certainly, samsiddhim, in perfection, asitaha, situated, Janaka adaya, Janaka and other kings, Lokasangraham, the people in general, Eva api, also, Sampasyan, considering, Kartum, to act, Arhasi, you deserve. So this is Krishna speaking. Kings such as Janaka attain perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. So Krishna speaking to Arjuna. Kings like Janaka were all self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. And nonetheless, they performed all these prescribed activities just to set examples for the people in general. Janaka was the father of Sita and the father-in-law of Lord Rama. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendently situated, but because he was king of Mithila, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach his subjects how to perform prescribed duties. Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal friend, had no need to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, but they fought to teach people in general that violence is also necessary in a situation where good arguments fail. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, every effort was made to avoid the war, even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the other parties were determined to fight for such a right cause. There was necessity for fighting. Although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, still he performs work to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced persons in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way that others will follow, and this is explained in the following verse, and I'll read just the translation in the next verse. Whatever actions a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Om Gyantimidandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pastyatya De Satarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here it's mentioned how great persons who are transcendentalists, who are pretty much fully absorbed in the process of pure devotional service, may or may not perform certain activities that are required for others. But in order to set the example of how to act, because people really get their inspiration from persons who are in positions of responsibility or leadership. And we usually, growing up, we usually get our first teachings from our parents. They more or less, we so try to learn from them, and they also try to teach us. They try to emulate something that we need to adopt in our life. So these are our first, let me say, gurus, our parents. And then, of course, as we go on in society, we can connect with others, such as teachers and people in positions of leadership. And we admire, sometimes try to even emulate them, or sometimes even try to imitate them. But of course, that is something that is not recommended to do, but to learn from them, to hear from them, and try to adopt the same qualities that they have. But to imitate them, or to try to do the same thing they're doing, is somewhat pretentious, and it's not always in line with the best possible way to learn. Best possible way to learn, of course, is to hear from great souls and to understand what are the qualities that they exhibit to make their activities successful. Of course, it's not always about activities, it's about character. So we have the example of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who plays the part of a powerful king. He's called, he's called Veda Maryada. He follows the Vedas very carefully. He's very strict in his ideal way of every aspect of his life. He's called the ideal king, the ideal husband, the ideal son, the ideal leader. He's ideal in all of his ways of expressing his responsibilities in the world. So, but you make a comparison between Ram and Krishna, and you'll see there's some, I don't know how to explain it. There's a little gulf of difference, to put in a very simple words. Ram had one wife, and he made that a point of his teachings to give us the understanding that to take care of a wife is the most important duty of a husband. And of course, he's the Supreme Lord, he can take care of many ladies, but in this case, he was teaching that one should not adopt this idea of many wives just for the sake of what we say, popularity or sense gratification. He was teaching a certain principle. Krishna had 16,108 queens, and of course also gopis. So, and people like to imitate Krishna, but we see it's just what is called some kind of sahaja, taking things cheaply, not taking things cheaply, being very offensive to the nature of the Supreme Lord and trying to adopt the same character and activities that he does, although there is no adhikari, there is no qualifications for these things. But in Ram, he wants to set the example that we should follow his ideal principles in terms of the activities he performs, but not in the same exact same way, but in the principle that he teaches. So when his father told him, hey, your stepmother says that, I gave a promise to her, and I have to keep my promise, although I don't want to keep my promise, because I know my promise didn't expect to turn the events of the whole kingdom around in a very apparently less qualitative way. In other words, you can't be king, because I had promised whatever she asked, I would give her. And of course, it says that he kept his word. And now that's a thing that leaders require to do. When you say something, even if it apparently is something against what the changing situations bring about, still, they keep their word. Because if they don't, then other people will think, oh, well, he said something, he changed, I can also do that. If he's the leader, then that must be the standard, or that must be allowable. So leaders, when they say something, they have to keep their word, even if there's an expense of some lesser principle that may be adopted. So he was asked to go to the forest for 14 years. And immediately, without arguing, without even questioning, he said, "My dear Father, whatever you say, that is my command. Your order is my command." And so he immediately showed the example that one should follow your parents. Hare Krishna. Now you might say that might be a little controversial in today's society. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, you should not follow relatives who are against Krishna. Hare Krishna. So if your parents are, what we say, supportive or at least favorable, then that's an ideal parent, because it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, don't become a mother, don't become a father, don't become a guru, don't become a teacher unless you can deliver your disciples, your students, your sons and daughters from this cycle of birth and death. It's a great responsibility to take on the responsibility of leadership in these different categories, especially within the family. So it's the, what we say, the inviolable duty of the parents to make sure that their children are led on the right path, and that is the path of devotion. And they also must be an example for that too, obviously. But if somehow or other, influenced by the Western Mayic activities, and somehow see that material success is really more important than spiritual activities, then these types of parents are not rejected as parents, but those instructions don't really apply. Because ultimately, there's that goal of life is Prema Pumartha Mahan, to ultimately come back to Krishna in devotional service. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, you can get angry in three different ways, or in three different ways. You can get angry at yourself if you're lazy. Hare Krishna. That's good. That's helpful. Oh, I'm lazy. I should be doing this. I don't want to do this. Just like we had a nice kirtan, and I was standing there, I thinking, I don't feel like dancing. And I know you're supposed to dance in kirtan, especially when the kirtan is nice. I was thinking, I don't feel like dancing. But then the melody changed, and all of a sudden, my laziness was gone. It wasn't done by me, but it was inspired from the outside. So as soon as the melody changed, somehow I needed a different melody to dance to. So then again, that laziness may come in many situations, especially when we have responsibilities. Like we have to write our Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada every year. So they always give you a deadline. And you usually think, why wait to the last minute when you can wait to the last second, you know? And then it's like, 12 o'clock midnight, just a few minutes before the deadline, and you're writing like you're going away, losing sleep, but you get it done. So that's not the way to do things, of course. That's just, we might say, laziness or bad planning. So that's one way of getting upset at yourself. The other one is that if your relatives try to stop you from Krishna consciousness, you can get angry at them. Hare Krishna. That's Bhaktisiddhanta. And then he said the third one is that you get angry at the demons for making a mess of the world. So these are things. So a leader has a great responsibility to teach by example, although they may not necessarily have to follow. For instance, we have the example of the ideal husband. Now, there's a contradiction in principles that come up with this particular Leela of Lord Ram. When he was asked to go to the forest, immediately his wife, Sita Devi, the chaste wife of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she immediately wanted to come. Now it says, don't take your wife to the forest. Hare Krishna. Because the forest is not a suitable place for, when we say, ladies. It's a dangerous place. It's dark, it's cold, and especially that forest that we're going into, they were full of rakshasas. And it was very little, what we say, opportunities to find any kind of, what we say, food or conveniences there. So Ram, when she said, you're not asked to go, I'm asked to go. Why do you want to go? She said, well, it says that I have to remain with you wherever you are. And since you are leaving Ayodhya, and you will represent Ayodhya, I'm not leaving Ayodhya because I'm going with you, which is non-different than Ayodhya. So Ram didn't know what to say. So he eventually accepted her as his responsibility. But you saw from the Leelas how many times he had to get her out of danger. And of course, ultimately, the last part was which brought about the whole war of Lanka. So that was a great responsibility. So there was a contradiction, and apparent contradiction in principles. That don't take your wife to the forest, that's also mentioned in Shastras. But at the same time, when the wife should not leave the husband, especially a very chaste and dutiful wife, especially in situations where the husband actually requires the companionship of the wife. And so in that particular case, he chose to allow her to come, which was somewhat difficult and brought about so many. So Ram was teaching that, and she was also teaching that this is the duty of a chaste wife. She should always be there to assist and serve her husband as his, what we say in this case, eternal companion. Now Ram, when he went to the forest, after some time, of course, his brother Bart realized that he was sent to the forest, and he became very upset. Of course, he gathered his armies, and they came into the forest to meet Ram and to bring Ram back to Ayodhya. And that's a long story how the meeting came about. Jai CC Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Gaur Nitai ki jai. And Ram, there was a very, what we say, kind of like polemical dialogue between the two of them. Ram wanted Bart to go back and rule the throne, and Bart wanted Ram to come because he was meant to be the king, the prince regent. And so they were both glorifying each other and saying, actually, the responsibility is to the other person. But Bart was no match for Ram. Ram had so many arguments and he said, actually, you take my slippers and you put them on the throne, and you can rule from that position. At any time there is any kind of decision, you go to those slippers and, get the answer. In other words, pray to me in the form of those slippers, and I'm always with you. And of course, Bart, he didn't even go to Ayodhya. He went to a place called Nandigram, which was 14 miles from Ayodhya, which was a very secluded place. You can go there today. There's actually a Murti of Bart there. And he stayed there for the entire 14 years, ruling from a distance. And whenever there was some responsibility for making the decision, he would always come to Ayodhya and pray to the slippers. But then, before he went, Ramchandra gave him instructions, and I'll read. This is the instructions on how to rule. So these are some of the principles that are meant to be adopted by a leader. He said, my dear Bart, please know that a righteous kingdom will surely prosper. are the brahmanas, the elders and the demigods being properly respected? 1. Are the women in the kingdom honored and protected? That's mentioned not only in the kingdom, but throughout the entire society. If women are exploited, misused, mistreated, the whole society goes to hell. To offend a lady is a great, in fact, women are so much honored that even if they do something wrong, they are not chastisable. That's Shastra. There may be some correction, but they're not punishable. Women are not punishable. So to take care of women is the duty of the leaders within the society and make sure they have everything they need. Similarly, children, old people, cows especially, and of course the Brahminical culture as mentioned here, are meant to be honored and protected. Then he goes on to say, are disputes being impartially judged? I hope you are avoiding the 14 weaknesses of a king. And then he lists the 14 weaknesses. Atheism, hypocrisy, anger, procrastination, laziness, slavery to the senses, contempt for good advice. When you hear good advice, Ram took advice. Of course, he's the all good Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows everything. But yet, in the role of the ideal king, he always took advice from his ministers and even from others. And that doesn't mean he always followed that, but as an etiquette, he took advice. And many times, most of the times, he followed. Just like I'll tell that story later. Lack of vigilance, that's another, what we say, weakness for a king. Fondness of bad counsel. Ravana was like that. He wanted to hear what he wanted to hear. So it didn't matter what the council said, but he made sure that whatever they said didn't matter. He took advice just as some kind of exercise, but he always did what he wanted. Fondness for bad counsel. Impractical planning. Inability to keep a secret. Attachment for foolish friends. If you associate with foolish people, it has a tendency to also cause you to act similarly. You have to be careful how we choose our friends. But of course, devotees are kind to everyone. They show their kindness to everyone, but when it comes to developing friendship, they're very selective. Negligence of religious observances and failure to counteract enemies. These are he said, my dear brother, you are aware of the 3 kinds of prowess. And these are the things that one should adopt as a leader. Energy, authority, and intelligence. Do you avoid the following 8 types? Gossiping. The 8 types of people. The one who gossips. The one who uses foul language. The usurper of property and the unjust. Do you avoid making alliance with these 20 kings? Then he names them. The child Marnak, the senile, the frail and ill, those who have been overthrown, the overly aggressive, the cowardly, the greedy, the sensualist, the frivolous, those who are defeated in battle, those who frequently travel abroad, those with many enemies, those who are poverty-stricken, those opposed to religious principles, those who are despised by their ministers, and the mentally disturbed. And he goes on to say, I hope you prefer to keep the company of learned men rather than thousands of ignorant fools. One talented minister can give one immense benefit, where in times of necessity, thousands of fools can't do anything. O Bart, if a king does not get rid of a physician who is simply adept at aggravating a disease, a servant who is not intent upon bringing disgrace to his master, or a warrior who wants to become ruler himself, then he will surely be killed by these three. Are the women protected and honored by you? Are they pacified with regard to material needs? I hope that you do not place too much faith in women or confine your secrets in them. So this is what Lord Ram said to Bart. So he gives the standard for ruling. But in general, we find that there is what you say and what you do. Sometimes we use a cliche. Your actions are so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. So ideally, it says that example is higher than precept. One can speak so many things, and it's important and necessary. That is also a responsibility, and one should do that. But if one doesn't become an example for what they speak, then no one will take that person seriously. Any intelligent person, anyway. So being an example, so Srila Prabhupada said, what is the quality of a Vaishnava? How can we understand a Vaishnava? What is the characteristic? What is the behavior of a Vaishnava? Then he goes on to say a behavior of a Vaishnava is that she gives respects to everyone, no matter who they are. But that respect may be given according to the situation, according to the person. But a respect is always the motivation behind that, what we say, mood towards others. But why do we give respects to all the others, even though some are not respectable? Right, just like the persons in the material world, they're acting against religious principles. Sometimes they cause difficulty to people in general. But still, we don't disrespect them, but we don't follow their example, nor do we agree to what they say. But at the same time, respect is given in the sense that, what is that respect? They are part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna resides in the heart of all living entities. Therefore, the respect is given both to the soul and to Supreme Personality who is right within the heart. In other words, a devotee doesn't cause unnecessary difficulty to anyone. That's one of the qualities of a devotee, and especially a leader. A leader is not a person, they simply give orders to someone else and expect everyone to follow what they say. They also have to be example for what they teach to others and be willing to do the same thing even if it's required. They may not necessarily do that because one of the duties of a leader is to designate responsibilities to others. But simply to dictate orders doesn't inspire people to follow. Sometimes people will follow because of the principle of leadership. But a leader is actually, what we say, glorious when they act according to what they say to others. So this is one of the qualities of a leader. And Prabhupada talks about leadership, and he says, we follow Krishna. He's the ideal leader, because everything he teaches for us is the principle of leadership, because devotees are meant to become the leaders in the world for the rest of society as examples to teach how to live life and how to live in such a way as to find the goal of life, which is, of course, to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotion. So that is the responsibility of leadership. Sometimes we see leadership, they put more attention on what is called material benefits rather than taking care of the responsibilities of the needs of those who are followed. Prabhupada used the example. He said, the leaders must be very affectionate, that's the word he used, towards those they're leading. A natural affection comes. And those who are following the leader, they should be very obedient. So that is the reciprocation. But if the leader is not affectionate or doesn't really have the best interests of the person at heart, it's hard to follow such a leader. No one will like that. Therefore, or no one will follow that, because we follow someone who emulates the qualities of leadership, which means concern for those they're leading. Not only to get the job done, but for their personal welfare. In the material world, people are not so much concerned in their leadership positions for the people that they're leading. They want to more or less lead them in such a way as to make sure they work in such a way as to get the job done, make the money, increase the quality of the business. And if people don't come up to the standard, then they're dispensable. And someone else can be hired. But in Krishna consciousness, it's not. Devotees are not dispensable. Devotees are very precious, and therefore, one who is in a position of responsibility has to lead in such a way that the devotee gets everything they need to practice Krishna consciousness, and also on their personal level to take care of their needs on that level also. That's the quality of a leader. And you see many great leaders in our society. Just for example, Bhakti Charu Swami was an ideal leader. I mean, he comes to my mind. He was always asking, always concerned, always interested in how the devotees were doing, if they had any needs, if there were anything. He was always concerned about how people and devotees were faring. It was very personal. Sometimes leaders, they get a little aloof from their followers. Sometimes it's because of, well, you might say, so many responsibilities that come by way of leadership. But still, they have, the most important thing is to also give personal time to the devotees and make sure that they're inspired in their service. Make sure they get everything that is required for them to be happy in Krishna consciousness. That's what it takes to be a leader, really. And if the devotee, I'll give you an example. This was in New Vrindavan. This was, Srila Prabhupada was there. It was June, it was the end of the month of June, and Prabhupada was doing a darshan on one of the lawns in one of the houses of the devotee, and devotees came. And it was in the evening time, and it was a little slightly cool. So Prabhupada looked, and he saw one lady, and he said, "Are you cold?" And she said, no, Prabhupada, I'm okay. But she wasn't. She was just saying that. And Prabhupada looked at the temple president. He said, they won't say anything, but it's your responsibility to make sure that they get everything they need. They won't say anything. That was Prabhupada. When Prabhupada was in Mayapur, he was receiving Guru Puja, and kirtan was going on. Devotees were coming up and offering flowers. One devotee came, and Prabhupada noticed on his leg he had a pretty noticeable cut. So now the kirtan's going on, and they're chanting. And Prabhupada calls him over. Are you getting that cut taken care of? He was a little kind of like taken aback in the middle of the kirtan. He said, oh yes, Prabhupada. Prabhupada could understand he wasn't. So he turned to his secretary and said, give me a pencil and paper. And he wrote down some medicine. This is in the middle of the kirtan. And he said, here, get this medicine. This will help. So Prabhupada was like that. He was personally concerned with the devotees, and he took every opportunity to show that. That's what it takes to be a leader, not only just to, I'm the leader, And you are the ones that have to follow. Therefore, whatever I say, you have to carry out. That's not a leader. That's someone who is in a position to think that leadership means to be in control. But it's not about being in control. It's about being a servant to those you lead. That's why it's called servant leadership. We are only a servant. We cannot be anything else but a servant. That is our internal mood. Or that is our, eternal mood, not internal, eternal mood. And in whatever position we play, thank you, whatever position we play, that is simply how to serve in that position. We serve as temple president, we serve as guru, we serve as spiritual master, we serve as sanya, whatever category we're in, it's a mood of service. It's always that's the ideal. And how to serve, these are the qualities that a leadership must adopt in relationship to those. Sometimes we see leadership calculates success by how much money is coming in. Hare Krishna. But that's not necessarily the foundation to understand success, because that's mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He mentions that the external success that comes by way of pecuniary or financial benefits and followers and position are simply external. They have nothing to do with the qualities of that leader, in the sense that the leader is about character, and it's not about so much what they can do. Of course, what they can do may be an extension of their character, but sometimes we see, and we have examples, that people who have done so many wonderful things in Krishna consciousness, where are they today? Many of them are gone. Because it's not about that, because we understand from Shastra, Krishna says, what does he say? What's that verse? 327 in Bhagavad Gita. Prakriti kriyamanani guni karmani sarvasya ahankara vibhuratma kartaham iti manyate. Yeah. That one who thinks they're the doer actually is ahankara. It's a sense of false ego. So we are representative of the ultimate principle, which is the Guru or the Supreme Lord, and therefore whatever we can do, it's their mercy. And we don't take credit for anything we do, but we act in such a way as to try to be an exemplary in whatever we do, but at the same time give all credit to, just like Krishna, he likes to give credit to his devotees. There's a nice example. When Krishna was in Dwarka, and this was right after the Battle of Kurukshetra, and there was a meeting of all the elders, and Yudhisthira was there, and they were deciding how to begin carrying out the Rajasuya sacrifice, because it required much arrangements and much finances. The treasury was practically gone due to the war. So Krishna was there, Yudhisthira, all of the leaders in Dwarka were there. It was an assembly. During the meeting, some messenger comes to the door, and he's very, what we say, he's in the mood of emergency. So the security catches him, asks him why he's here. He says, I have to speak to Krishna. This is an emergency. He says, I have a letter to read to Krishna. He has to hear this. So the servant, the security, notifies Krishna, yes, there's someone here. Krishna says, all right, have him come forward. So he's reading. What is he reading? The kings that were imprisoned by Jarasandha. They're now about to be sacrificed by Jarasandha in some kind of, when we say human sacrifice. And so they're on the verge of being killed. And so they write this letter, Krishna, save us. Only you can save us. So the letter, now Krishna's hearing the letter, and he's hearing the plea of the kings, and he's very much concerned. So he knows the answer, because there was somewhat of a dichotomy. Should they put their energy in building this Rajasuya sacrifice now, or should they help get these kings out of trouble? So they had to decide what was the priority. So Krishna looks at Uddhava. Said, Uddhava, what should we do? Now Uddhava is Krishna's cousin, and he's very dear to Krishna. He's also a pure devotee. So Uddhava says, my dear Lord, if Jarasandha is still alive, there will be no success in the Rajasuya sacrifice. Our first duty is to kill Jarasandha. Everyone says, Jai Uddhava. All glories to Uddhava. That was brilliant. And then everyone agreed this was the perfect decision. Now Krishna knew that, because he knows everything. But he let Uddhava take the credit. This is one of the examples of how leadership should lead also. They may empower devotees to do things. And when the devotees do things, then they give credit to the devotees. Krishna does that also. He empowers devotees to do things. Devotees do wonderful things. They get some credit, they get some praise, they get some glory for that. And Krishna is happy because he's the one that's doing it. He's the one that's giving the intelligence. He says, Sarvasya chaham hridisani vistam matat smirta jnanam apoha. I give the intelligence. He says, I am the ability in all living beings. But he likes to give credit to his devotees. So leadership is like that. They should also lead in such a way as to facilitate whatever the devotees need to do their service. But when the devotees do something wonderful, devotees get all the credit. Leaders don't want credit. That's one of the things, because if they take credit, then the idea is that, yeah, I'm the doer. It was by my abilities, it was by my intelligence everything came about. So a leader likes to stay in the background, but is still the main force in making things happen. That's one of the qualities of leadership. So there's many. There's actually books written about leadership and how to organize things. I'll read one thing. This is coming from the secular world. It says here, let me see where I can find it. This is it. Efficiency is doing things right, but effectiveness is doing the right things. So how to do the right things at the right time. That's one of the qualities of leadership. And that's also a quality that should be adopted in general. Knowing what to do at the time it's required. And not always just doing things because something needs to be done. That's called organization. And leaderships must be in such a position as that they're organized. If the leaders are not organized, Hare Krishna. It's not Hare Krishna, it's something else. So we can speak so many, what we say, qualities of leadership. But it's actually a great responsibility to take leadership. Sometimes devotees don't want leadership positions, even when they're offered, and even if they're qualified, because they know it's a lot of headaches. Not necessarily headaches, it's a lot of responsibility. And one temple president used to tell me, as a temple president, if you do 9 things right and you do 1 thing wrong, Hare Krishna. People remember that one thing, sometimes. So yeah, it is a great responsibility, but Prabhupada said each and every devotee should have the qualities of being a leader in the sense that we're leading others towards Krishna consciousness. In other words, we take the responsibility of helping others become Krishna consciousness. And that is also a position of a leader, leading in the spiritual way. Okay, so there's a lot we can say about leadership because it's a great subject matter, and there's a lot of dynamics to it also. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. Very nice class, Maharaj. So Lord Ram is teaching, he's got exemplary behavior, he's teaching by example, and just so other people can follow. So you were saying how women should be protected. So what can we learn from Lord Ram leaving Sita for some gossip?
What can we learn from Lord Ram when he did what?
When he left Sita.
Oh.
Because he heard some Sudra.
Okay, yeah, when that washerman was criticizing his wife for staying out all night, and he said, "Now you're coming back. I don't know who you were with last night, and you're unchaste. I am not like Ram, who takes back his unchaste wife." Hare Krishna. Ram heard that. He was in disguise, roving through the kingdom just to hear what the citizens were saying. But then he saw that, well, now my character is being criticized. So he wanted to be exemplary in that. Now, there are many, many other reasons why he did that, which are not so apparent, but are mentioned in different shastras. And that was the prelude to destroying. It's a long story. But there was a reason behind that. That's the one everybody wants to hear the answer to, right? Or doesn't like the answer. I don't have the material in front of me. It's 9 pages long. It's a pastime. 2 demons. They came to Lord Brahma. I'll just try to give you a synopsis. And said that we want, they performed austerities, tremendous austerities, and Brahma came to grant their boon. They asked him, what do you want? They said, we want that when people who perform impious activities get pious credit, and when people perform pious activities, they get impious credit. That was their request. Brahma was somewhat, taken aback by their request, but they had performed austerities and he had promised to give them a boon. And he said, the only way that our requests cannot be fulfilled if the Supreme Lord is separated from his eternal associate. In other words, from Sita, from his energy. They understood that God and his energy are never separated. So in order to break that request of the demons, Ram went ahead and did that and banished Sita. And that's mentioned in a supplement to the Ramayana, and it's 9 pages long. It describes the whole pastime. That was one of the main reasons why he did it. And of course, we might say that the other reason was to keep his character from being, criticized. But that was a lesser reason. That's in essence that particular pastime. It explains it much more detail. What these demons were planning and how, in order to foil their program, he separated his internal energy from himself. And that made their request null and void. You don't hear that pastime too much, but it's mentioned. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, nobody agrees with that, but anyway. Especially women, they say, he's so cruel, and she was so chaste, so he's a hard guy. But there was that internal reason that he did it.
What are the general populace meant to learn from that? Because we're meant to follow the example.
To remain chaste despite whatever. In other words, she obeyed her husband even though it broke her heart. Then he told Lakshman to take her to the ashram of Valmiki Muni and stay there. She was pregnant at the time, and then she had 2 sons, who later never found out about their father until their father actually left the planet. So these are just details of that particular pastime. But what can women learn from that pastime?
No, anyone.
Anyone?
Even the men.
Well, Ram had a reason for it, and that was to destroy these demons. But otherwise, he did everything to get his... There's another part. I was reading this pastime last night. This is interesting. Because Ravana didn't steal the real Sita. He stole Maya's Sita. But when Sita was there, and that deer came to entice Sita, and then she asked Ram to go catch that deer, before Ram went to catch the deer, he called Sita into his little hut and he had a private conversation. Later on it says the sages, and he said, I'm going to send you to the abode of Agni. You stay there. And he did, and then Agni produced the Maya Sita, who came and was stolen by Ravana. And that's why when Sita wanted to come back to him after he rescued her from Ravana, he refused, because it was the Maya Sita, it wasn't the real Sita. And then that Maya Sita went into the fire because he said, you're not pure. You know, you've been touched by Ravana. Therefore, I can't take you back. She just, it broke her heart, but then she wanted to prove her chastity. So when she went into the fire, this fire god came out carrying the real Sita. So Ravana never touched Sita. It says the internal energy of the Lord can never be touched by those who are materialistic. So he did everything to show his love for his eternal consort. But at one point, it was time for both of them to wind up their pastimes. So when he sent her away, it wasn't long after that he left the world. That's when he walked into the river. What was that? The Sarayu River? The Sarayu, right? And then she also left the world and they were reunited again in the spiritual world. All of this is mentioned in... But you can't fault Ram for what he did, although people find some discrepancy in the way he handled that criticism by that washerman. But they don't know the internal reason. And therefore, when you know the other reason, then you understand why he did it. Yes, Sri Devi.
Thank you for this wonderful class. My question is about the leaders. The Brahmanas are the head of society.
Right.
And Kshatriyas are supposed to be the arms of society. So, but in society we see in general that it's the Kshatriyas who are the leaders. So, who are the real leaders? Is it the Brahmanas or it's the Kshatriyas or both?
Brahmanas are the visionaries, and they also give direction to leadership. That is their responsibility. So, a real Kshatriya will take advice when it's required from the Brahmanas. Otherwise, they are the leaders, the Kshatriyas. But in times of need, they don't just try to figure it out. They go to the Brahmins for advice. But to rule is their quality. They have to know how to rule. So Kshatriyas are by nature very protective and concerned for their followers. So they rule in that way. Brahmins are universal. Kshatriyas are more local.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for our class, for being with us, giving us exemplary leadership. And my question would be, you mentioning leadership and inspiration from the leadership. So I was thinking we can find ourselves maybe sometime in a place where we may go from place to the another and see devotees, leaders, maybe temple presidents, other leaders like that, and we feel uninspired and we just start to point out, oh, this person doesn't inspire me, it's not good. And we go to other place and we again find, oh, this person doesn't inspire me. So I was thinking, doesn't it depend also on our attitude or our consciousness to see the inspiration in others? Could say that.
Yeah, it's a very... You have to really see the situation. Give you an example. In New York, when Prabhupada was here, the temple president married this girl from the outside, and she was very influential in doing things within the temple, and so she started putting eggs into the prasadam cooking. And so devotees eventually found out. So there was some upheaval, and then there was some concern that, this should be stopped. But it wasn't stopped. It kept going. So some of the senior devotees who couldn't make it a change, they weren't able to do it, they left. And some of the junior devotees stayed. Later on, Prabhupada came and straightened the whole thing out. He was away, he was in Japan at the time. And so he came back and straightened it out personally. But then he chastised, he said the leaders, he said to the junior devotees, you should not have stayed, you should have left. And the senior devotees, they should have stayed and tried to make the difference and correct it. So he saw that he gave two different instructions to do two different levels of devotees. Those who were in the position of leadership should have did everything they could to make that change. But they didn't. They made some effort, but they were unsuccessful, so they left. So he chastised them for leaving. And for the other ones who stayed, he said they were victimized because they stayed. Although they felt that they shouldn't leave because it's our duty to stay where we are and just obey the leadership. So there was, you see, there's kind of like a dichotomy there. So things are not always easy to understand how to respond. But when leaders get off, then it's the duty of other leaders to somehow be notified. Because if you come from the position of, you're not the leader, but you're criticizing the leaders, or you're finding fault, or you see some discrepancy, it could be offensive. Best to go to others who are their peers, who have some responsibility, and then try to let them straighten it out. That's how you do it, really. That's why we have an echelon of leadership. You go to higher levels if you can't get something corrected on a lower level. If it's need to be corrected, that is. Yeah. But if you're not inspired to follow certain leaders, then either make a change or change yourself, change them, or see somehow or other do something. Because you can't feel happy if you can't follow your leader. You'll never be able to make any progress. And leaders do get off sometimes. It happens. So there's a corrective. Like, what do they call it? What is that called? There's a type of, what is it called? Ombudsman, yeah, that's it. Like that. They set up a certain type of agency to deal with these discrepancies in leadership. Anything else? I know it's a little late. Okay, we can stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ji ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Candramauli Swami ki.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks for the event.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,